We have all heard many times that GregTech is the hardest mod in Minecraft, and this is mostly true. Most versions of GregTech require hundreds of hours to complete. Some of them, like GregTech New Horizons, take thousands. But is GregTech fun? In this video, I will explain why I think GregTech is not really that fun, by examining GregTech in general, and then, specific versions of GregTech. First of all, the actual gameplay part of GregTech is extremely simple. Before you get electric machines, everything is just done in the crafting table, like a more difficult version of Minecraft. Compared to vanilla Minecraft, the only new thing in this stage is the tools that you have to use to make plates, rods, and other funny items. This stage might be fun for the first time, but making the tools on your 47th playthrough when you're trying to speed run to the electric age is not that fun. Also, the tools have durability. It is not that annoying, but you have to redo the entire wire cutter crafting chain again after using your wire cutter 250 times. After you make a steam boiler, then you have to go through the steam age. You have machines, but you do not have full automation. In this stage, all you have to do is make several machines that you need to make for the bricked blast furnace, the multi-block machine that you need to make steel. Once you make steel, you have entered the electric age. This is where you'll be for the next 3,984 hours. Once you have a source of energy, from a turbine that's converting your steam to electricity, you are done. The next 3,984 hours of GregTech gameplay will just involve putting items into machines and then getting items out. All of GregTech is based on this simple principle: put items in, get items out. It does get more complicated as time goes on, because you'll have to go from automating one machine to 15 machines that depend on each other. Also, some machines have weird mechanics to make the game more difficult, and more fun, but that's not how it works. For example, when you use the clean room, you have to take account of the cleanliness of the machine. You have to keep it at 100%, otherwise it won't work. And how do you do that? By not opening the door of the machine. Yeah, the challenge here is to set up an elevator inside of the machine, which takes approximately 40 seconds. Also, people think that GregTech is realistic. Sure, it does have realistic chemistry, but it skips most of the history behind it. Primitive humans took until the year 1737 to make a steam engine, and you get to do it in 2 hours by following instructions by some random guy on YouTube. It could be interesting if you had to go through the Stone Age, then the Bronze Age, and then several tiers of technology to make a steam engine. Only 2 mod packs have tried to do this: Terra Firma Rescue, which is Chinese, and Terra Firma Greg, which is Russian. Both of them are incomprehensible without a guide. But now, let's examine different GregTech mod packs, because all of them have their own faults. Let's start with GregTech New Horizons. First of all, Dream Master XXL. What the GregTech is supposed to be GregTech, not Greg Bull. GTNH mixes GregTech with a variety of magic mods and infernal mobs. This makes the game feel like RL Craft. Any entity can just one-shot you from a distance of 400 meters. Going outside without heavy gear is basically a death sentence. This is why GregTech New Horizons players do not touch grass, because they think that real life is like this too. Also, there's something that I have talked about for a long time: the waiting. Everything in GregTech New Horizons takes insane amounts of time and effort. When you make a blast furnace for the first time, you have to mine over 1,000 clay, cook up over 500 bricks, then crush them, combine the clay and bricks to make fire clay, compress them, then go mine some rare ores like gypsum, make 36 buckets of cement, then use the bricks to make the brick blocks, and finally assemble the blast furnace. This entire process can take between 2 and 4 hours. If you're doing it the first time, without having the ore veins marked, it's a 6-hour ordeal. And all of this is just to make steel. You know how long it takes to make a single ingot of steel? 6 minutes. And to industrialize, you need over 1,000 of them. So you have to construct more blast furnaces, and each of them takes about 2 hours. GregTech New Horizons also runs on a version of GregTech that was developed in 2014. In this version, you have to physically insert fluid cells into a chemical reactor for it to work. instead of just putting in the fluids using a pipe. So you have to make fluid canners in your entire base to get all the processes working. And that's all my complaints on GregTech New Horizons. Now I will criticize Nomi Factory. Nomi Factory is the least bad one on this list. Nomi Factory skips the grind of the steam age, and just places you at the start of the electric age. Nomi Factory also makes some things easier, such as machines not exploding when they touch rain. The main complaint about Nomi Factory is that it's just really boring. Once you get past the fusion reactor, it is just a grind to make the creative tank and finish off the last few tiers. All of the processes just blend into each other. It has become so boring that most of I Go By Lots of Names audience stopped watching when he hit the middle tiers, and Eglin himself stopped editing and publishing videos at ludicrous voltage. There's only that much content you can do with GregTech. Then we have Super Symmetry. Super Symmetry was made as an attempt to fix these problems I have with GregTech, but instead, we just ended up making things worse. I Go By Lots of Names thought that the chemical reactors were unrealistic, so we split the chem reactor into 5 different machines. And the difference between these machines is just how many inputs and outputs they have. Super Symmetry also just gets super difficult around medium voltage, because of the realistic processing chains. The mod pack just looks like a college chemistry course. Every single item, that was previously very easy in GregTech, now requires a 10-step chain. There are at least 20 of these supremely difficult chains that you have to do to get to high voltage, and at high voltage, the number gets even higher. And every time you try to do something in chemistry, you have to use a distillery to separate a solution into 2 different parts. This adds a lot of unnecessary complexity to everything. Polytetrafluoroethylene is 25 steps. 25, for a plastic. On our server, most people just gave up around medium voltage because it was simply too difficult to get anywhere. It feels like a maze. There are just way too many things to do, and each one of those things is extremely boring, and it's linked to at least 5 other chains. At some point, we designed so many chemical processing chains that it would take thousands of hours to turn them into code for the game. So we asked ChatGPT. I trained a specific instance of ChatGPT to code the chains for us, and it worked. The funny thing is that people like I Go By Lots of Names, who have helped make the pack, still think that it's too hard. And there is no way to make Super Symmetry fun without cutting out about 80% of the gameplay that we have made, which is kind of sad. At that point, you start asking if it was really worth it. All that chemistry, 1,000 hours of effort, but was it worth it? And that is my opinion on GregTech. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video, which will be GregTech, because I still think it's interesting, but I don't play it anymore.